12 keys to making better decisions about your personal finances. Did your parents teach you to be a smart money manager? If so, consider yourself lucky. Most parents will talk to their kids about the birds and the bees, but not about budgets and CDs. They must assume we'll pick it up on our own, which is how most of us learn about personal finance. The Irish writer and poet Oscar Wilde once said, "Experience is simply the name we give our mistakes." Unfortunately, this is how many of us learn to be better money managers. We make mistakes like maxing out our credit cards, learn the consequences, and become smarter about money. Keys to making better decisions. If you'd rather not learn how to make good financial decisions by making bad ones and learning from them, there are some keys to making better financial decisions. Be brutally honest with yourself. If you're not careful, you can fool yourself into making some really bad financial decisions. For example, you could decide to borrow from your 401k because, heck, you'd be paying interest to yourself. Or you might buy furniture you don't really need because of the lure of zero-interest financing. These are the kind of decisions where you could be deceiving yourself into financial problems. Be brutally honest with yourself about all of your decisions and the motivations behind them. Do you really need to borrow from your 401k to buy that new car? Or could you just save money for a year, 18 months, and then pay cash? And while 0% interest can be a good deal in some cases, you shouldn't use it as an excuse to buy something you don't really need. A good rule of thumb is that when in doubt, get a second opinion from a family member or friend that you know is good with his or her money. As George S. Clason once wrote, it costs nothing to ask wise advice from a good friend. Watch out for fees. There are almost always fees attached to things that have to do with finances, credit cards, banking, investments, and other financial products. It's absolutely critical to keep fees low, especially when it comes to investing. Making money in the stock market is tough enough by itself without paying fees that wipe out your gains. Use cash, not credit. Whatever you do, don't finance your lifestyle on credit. Credit card debt can just ruin your life. Pay cash for everything from groceries to vacations to cars. If you need to make sacrifices to pay cash, do it. Using credit to buy things is the equivalent of stealing money from yourself in the future. Every cent you borrow must be paid back, and often at a very high interest rate. As the Persian poet Omar Khayyam wrote, "Take the cash and let the credit go, nor heed the rumble of a distant drum." Save a dime out of every dollar. This is very simple, but very powerful. Make a habit beginning right now to save at least 10% of your gross pay. Save 20% or even more if possible. If you don't doubt what this can mean to your life, read the book The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. Think long-term. Ours has turned into a get-rich-quick society, but if you really want to build lasting wealth, you need to think long-term as you make your financial decisions. This puts everything into perspective, from a $4 latte at Starbucks to how much you should invest in your 401k. As an example of this, if you think long-term, you would realize that a daily $4 latte eventually adds up to $21,056 over 10 years. And investing $1,000 a month beginning at age 25 instead of age 35 generates $1.7 million more by age 65. Learn to live with uncertainty. While you may think you should avoid uncertainty like the plague when making financial decisions, the problem is that it costs a lot to avoid it. For example, the insurance industry thrives on uncertainty when it comes to cash value life insurance and annuities. However, some protection against uncertainty is unavoidable, such as term life insurance and auto insurance. Be sure to think twice before spending a lot of money in return for guarantees. For example, this concept can be especially important if you are evaluating an annuity. Annuities can be part of some financial plans, but there are always fees associated with these products, and they tend to limit the upside. An annuity will generate a constant stream of payments, but at a high cost. The key here is to think carefully before spending a lot of money to avoid uncertainty. There are rewards to learning to live with it. Keep things simple. There's an old rule of thumb that the more complex is a solution, the less likely it is to be your best option. For example, in most cases, term life insurance is a better investment than complicated permanent life insurance products. And index funds are generally better than more complicated actively managed funds. One simple way to invest is in funds or EFTs, as this is usually better than complicated insurance products that have an investment component. In other words, all things being equal, simple is most often better. Harness the power of compounding. It's important to harness the power of compounding. Once you understand it, you can better evaluate your financial decisions to make sure they take advantage of it and not ignore it. If you're not familiar with compounding, this is where you earn interest on your investment and then interest on that interest. For example, if you started with $100 and added $100 a month at 2% interest, you would have $1,313.08 at the end of year 1, and then $2,550.64 at the end of year 2, and not just $2,500. Always consider the power of compounding, whether it comes to paying off debt or how you need to be investing today. Do the critical things first. Don't put off the big financial decisions. Begin every day thinking about those things you need to accomplish and get to the important stuff first. Don't put off actions such as preparing a will, investing for retirement, or buying life insurance. When you do the critical things first, everything else would just be much easier. Take responsibility for your actions. Despite what the politicians might want you to believe, you are not a victim. These people may tell you that the problem is corporate America or that the system is rigged, but the results are the same. It makes us feel helpless. This is all nonsense that's created to score political points rather than moving the country forward. Never play the victim. Learn to think outside the box. Do you tend to view financial decisions in black and white? For example, do you believe that your emergency fund should always be in cash in a bank, or that you should pay off all your non-mortgage debt before investing? These approaches to personal finance often turn out to not be in your best interest. Don't make a financial decision without weighing the pros and cons and considering all alternate options. Don't be greedy. Your friend has a great stock tip that's absolutely guaranteed to make you money, but you also worry that this might be too good to be true. When this is the case, it usually is. Whenever you're faced with one of these deals, you need to monitor your own emotions. You may be tempted by a get-rich-quick mentality, but think twice before acting, as these deals often don't turn out well. If you need help with credit card debt, National Debt Relief offers a free debt consultation to help with credit card problems. Call 888-866-0778 or visit nationaldebtrelief.com today.
I have 5 things that I have done and do against the hazard of money and for the helpfulness of money, and I hope they inspire you to find your way of doing it. And maybe one other word here. Paul's so interesting in the way he deals with the people he loves and trying to get them to do what he wants them to do. And remember when he wrote to Philemon, he said, I could command you, but I don't for love's sake. We know that you can command somebody you love. God does it all the time. But there's something about a command that's a little harder to perceive as love. Whereas entreating and example giving, so that's what I'm after. I'm talking as a father to his family here. I feel old enough to talk like that, even though 1 or 2 of you are older than me. But most of you, okay, number 1. First 3, everybody can copy. Second 2 are a little bit different. I study to see and savor the supreme value of Jesus every day. And by study, I don't mean formal study. I just mean I make an effort. Study war no more, in that sense of study. I make an effort by reading my Bible every day on a quest for a vision of God that will reassert His supremacy in my heart. I want to see Him and His Son and His work in this book every day in such a way that it makes money lose its effect. That's my goal. Or anything else that's clamoring for my soul. Notoriety, or pick your idol. The goal in reading the Bible is to see God as so supremely valuable that other things assume their way lower place, and your idolatries fall away, and your obedience becomes driven by what is beautiful than by this lash on your back. It's just a glorious thing if God would open our eyes, which leads to number 2. I pray that He would help me see what I'm after. I don't assume I can get it. It's a spiritual thing. It's not an intellectual thing merely. You can stare at the Bible all day long and see nothing wonderful and nothing glorious and be moved in your heart, not the least, to be free from Best Buy. But if you pray the way the psalmist prayed, incline my heart to your testimonies and not to selfish gain. Satisfy me in the morning with your steadfast love, that I may rejoice and be glad in you all my days. That's a good prayer to pray every day. Satisfy me in the morning with your steadfast love. Open my eyes that I may behold wonderful things out of your word. Cry to God that He would reveal His supreme value to your soul so you feel it. You walk into the day and He is so precious and so valuable, and communing with Him is so satisfying. Pornography loses its power and covetousness loses its power. That's the way I fight every day, and it's a fight to the finish. I have no illusions that between now and when I die, I can coast. I could make shipwreck of my life. I taste it. It is war till you're dead. And the war is to see. It's to see. Number 3. So first, study to see His value in the Word every day. And 2, cry out to Him and pray that He would let you and help you and make you see. And number 3, I daily put my trust in His promises that the needs of this church and the needs of my family will be met. My God will supply all of your needs according to His riches in glory in Christ Jesus. Not all the things you think you need, but all that you really need to give Him glory. They're going to be there, even if you starve to death. Is that okay? I get that from Romans 8. What shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, persecution, famine, nakedness, peril, sword? No! In all these things, we are more than conquerors. I'll always have enough to glorify my King, which is all life is about. Life is not about food and clothing. It's about the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom. All these things will be added. How much? Just enough to seek the kingdom. It'll always be there. God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. Is that amazing? There's not a single good work God has ever or ever will call you to do for which there will not be sufficient resources to do it. You can never say, God wants me to do X, but I don't have the resources. Ever. That's awesome. If He wants you to do it, He provides the doing.